This is a relay project.
Real Talk starts right now. Here's Ryan Jesperson.
Hey, welcome to Real Talk, and thanks for making time for us on this Tuesday, April 18th. It's Ryan Jesperson, John Hicks in the house.
Hello.
How you doing, pal?
Courtlow, I think, is the,
Courtlow
the saying.
today.
We're both we're just off a big night at the Edmonton Oilers game here at Rogers Place, right across the street in Edmonton, Alberta. It was a hard-fought match and not the result we wanted.
Not the result we wanted after the Oilers were big and bold and assertive and excellent out of the gates. And early 2-0 lead, and then all for naught as the LA Kings, a huge road win in Game 1.
16 seconds of the third they score.
Into overtime, and then there you have it. So the LA Kings up 1-0 in that series. But it's playoffs, and there is energy infused downtown. You were spinning tunes in what they call the Moss Pit. For anybody that's not in Edmonton, this is the area just outside. It's like a public gathering area in the shadows of the towers of the Stantec Tower and Edmonton Tower, the JW Marriott Hotel just across the street from the rink, and you had a little bit of it, like you had like a Freddie Mercury kind of a Queen moment going on there. It looked pretty amazing.
If we watch right here, this was insane.
People listening on the podcast, that's what, Johnny, like 2,000 people?
2,500 about,
2,500.
And they were just singing every word.
Love it. Was this before or after the game?
This was during. This was like
during.
one of the intermissions right before third period when we thought everything was a lock.
Yeah.
It looked good. But
hey, that's why they play the games, as they say. We had a lot of fun yesterday with Derek Van Diest. If you missed that, it was his first day on the job yesterday for NHL.com. The guy's been covering sports, like traveling with the Oilers, covering the World Cup. He's got some really great gigs over the years, 28 years, he told us in print, and DVD, as they call him, with his first day on the job for NHL.com, joining us in studio yesterday. Loved his take on the playoffs. If you missed that, you can catch it anywhere you get your podcast today. In just a second, Vanmala Subramaniam is going to join us. She's the future of work reporter for the Globe and Mail, covering this story. More than 150,000 federal public servants could go on strike by tomorrow if they don't reach a deal. 150,000 of them, and a whole bunch of them, like 35,000, are working for the for Revenue Canada, John. So I don't know if this means that people don't have to worry about filing their taxes by the April 30th deadline or not. I'm not sure what that's going to mean if they all go on strike. But it's pretty wild, and I'm looking forward to putting this out to Real Talkers. And when you hear this, when you're listening to the podcast or however you're getting the show, let us know what you think about this. The demands, so to speak, I mean, as these negotiations continue, pretty interesting. The union has been looking for significant wage increases, and I don't know, I'm just, like, the scuttlebutt, the word on the street, where are people at with this? They want to see a wage increase for 4.5% in the first year. They're saying that inflation's a big, determining factor here on how they're landing on these numbers. But they say a wage increase, 4.5% in year one, 8% in year two, 8% in year three, which I don't know. If I'm on the other side of the table, I don't know what you do with it. I get that everybody wants to get paid, but in this day and age, 4.5, 8, and 8, what do they think they are, Johnny? Pro athletes? But in all seriousness, I'd be curious to hear where you're at in your workplace. If you're an employer, what are you doing to navigate these waters around inflation? We see numbers today, updated numbers showing that it's cooling in Canada, still high, relatively speaking, but cooling down to about 4.5% annually, and that means that some prices are coming down, groceries, gasoline, and the like. But still, how are you keeping your employees happy? If you're on the employee side, what is your employer doing, if anything, to help you with rising costs? Obviously, households have to stick to budgets, and so how are you doing that? That's a story we're keeping an eye on. Angie Mellen's going to join us in the second half of the show. You've probably seen some of the billboards that are up this time of year. They go up talking about the bikini body, talking about the hot girl summer, talking about the revenge body, Johnny. All these billboards. Angie says that they're surrounded with red flags. And we're going to find out exactly why. And Angie's here to talk about her personal story. Plus, I wanted to get into some of the responses. Charles Adler and I yesterday talking about Pierre Poilievre's plan to defund the CBC. That's what he says he's going to do. He's not the first Conservative politician to say that they're going to defund the CBC. It's a popular talking point. You know that. And it was evidenced yesterday when I tweeted about it. I wanted to get into some of the replies to my tweet because it really is. I mean, it's honestly... it was something, to say the very least. And I don't even work at the CBC, and I'm facing fire for just talking about this. But I was actually having a chuckle as I was checking into my Twitter yesterday, so I thought I'd share that with you. This episode of Real Talk is presented by our friends at We Know Training. You know, they're the trusted partner to hundreds of organizations that operate in regulated spaces. Is that you? Are we describing where you're at? They work with regulators, associations, nonprofits, and others whose standards are high, and training's got to meet complex needs and compliance requirements. When the stakes are high and protecting the public is of utmost importance, you need a training program that's trusted, defensible, and designed specifically for regulators. We Know Training has a platform that's designed to uphold rigorous privacy standards. It provides learner verification, completion certificates, digital badges. You get it. High-value training that learners will retain in crucial real-life scenarios. We Know Training helps nonprofits make their vision a reality with accessible training at a reasonable price. You can learn more at weknowtraining.ca. Well, this is a story today. It could be a bigger story tomorrow if 150,000 public servants, federal public servants, go on strike. If they don't strike a deal, if that doesn't happen by 9 p.m. Eastern tonight. Vanmala Subramaniam's keeping an eye on this, the future of work reporter for the Globe and Mail. Kind enough to join us this morning. It's nice to see you. Thanks for making time for us.
Thanks for having me, Ryan.
We always love when we see someone with an impressive setup or a great background. We always like to ask about it out of the gates. For the benefit of those that are listening to this on the podcast, is that a legit front page, the man on the moon? Is that seriously from the 60s, what you have framed behind you?
Oh, it's not what I have framed. I'm at the Globe and Mail newsroom. It's one of our rooms. But yes, it's a legitimate front page.
So very cool. Well, thanks for making time for us today. Let's get into this story. How do we get to this point? Almost 150,000 federal public servants could walk out on the job tomorrow. Can you give us some background on how it got to this?
Yeah, absolutely. These wage negotiations, so I guess negotiations for a new collective agreement, have been going on for a year and a half, believe it or not. And they involve about 150,000 public servants. 35,000 of them are Canada Revenue Agency workers. So, you know, we'll talk about this later, but that's where I think Canadians will see a bit of impact if there's, you know, a strike. And essentially the sticking point for the union is two issues: one, wages, and two, remote work language. And on the wage front, essentially what the union is asking for is a 13.5% wage increase over a 3-year period. So 4.5% every year. They're arguing that matches inflation. And, you know, they're not asking for a dime more. And, you know, their workers need to see wage gains that keep up with inflation. As you know, we have been in quite a severe inflationary period for a while. Now, the government started at about 6.5% overall over 3 years, but they moved their position yesterday to about 9%. So, and the union has not budged from that. So we're still in a situation where the union calls messy. They said it's a frustrating mood at the bargaining table, and which is why they've set sort of a strike deadline of 9 p.m. Eastern today.
I know that I don't want to put you in a tough spot. I don't like to put journalists in a tough spot. You say you say I'm going to come here. I'm going to be objective. I'm going to report just the facts. But can I bring you into the gray area and ask you what your gut tells you? What's your prediction on where this is going to go? But we're talking about. I mean, if people are watching this or listening to this stream live, we're talking about less than 12 hours from right now. I mean, this is crunch time.
It is crunch time. I'm bit hesitant to make a prediction, but I can tell you this. I think that it would be very politically tricky for the Liberal government to allow a strike to take place for a number of reasons. A, we are approaching tax season deadline, this will cause a huge backlog in, people getting their tax returns, a lot of irritation for Canadians. The other departments that would be affected, we're talking about a lot of workers. So, Service Canada, frontline employees, and administrative staff at the back, which would mean your passport processing, will be, if you want to renew your passport or apply for a new one, that might be affected. And we do know that these services have already been sort of inefficient after the pandemic, and for a multitude of reasons. Immigration is the other one. That's a huge immigration backlog of multiple people through the express entry system. I've reported quite a bit on this, and a strike will further exacerbate this. So I think it would be quite unpopular to not meet the demands of the union in a way. On the other hand, asking for a 13.5% increase over 3 years is quite an unprecedented amount if you look at the history of wage asks of unions. And it's only happening because we've seen inflation, and unions feel they have a bargaining chip, some sort of leverage to ask for more because prices of goods have gone up.
Yeah, no kidding.
I'm hesitant to make a prediction one way or the other, but my gut feeling is they might reach a deal before 9 p.m. Otherwise, it would be the largest strike in Canadian history.
Largest strike in Canadian. If you think about it, they're like 150,000. It's a small city across the country going on strike. You're right. The timing, maybe I'll take my words back when I hear from someone from the union that talks about how stressful this has been and how brutal it's been, and they've been working without an agreement and they don't want to get to this point. But you could argue in a way the timing's never been better for people right now that are negotiating wage increases. If you're on the government side here, if you're negotiating on the other side anyway, you're sitting there wondering about precedents though as well, right? And other contracts that are coming up. I guarantee you that hundreds of thousands, if not millions of Canadians are reading your reporting in the Globe and Mail right now, bringing it into their boss and saying, look what everybody else is getting right now.
And that's such a fantastic point in the sense of, wages have gone up for workers over the last 1 year or so. We've seen about a 5% wage gain across the board. Non-unionized, high-paying private sector workers have seen the biggest wage gains over the last 1 year. This is all StatsCan data that I'm quoting from. So, and construction unions in particular have managed, they are private sector unions, but they have managed to negotiate very significant wage gains. And I'm talking about 9% increases in a year kind of thing. So given the context of where the labor movement is in the bargaining table, both private and public sector labor unions, I think PSAC, the Public Service Alliance of Canada, feels that they can ask for that much. And what's one thing very interesting about PSAC is that if you trace the history of their negotiations, they have always, for the most part, managed to successfully negotiate inflationary wage increases for their members. So from their perspective, they're not asking for anything untoward. From the government's perspective, do we want to subject Canadians to paying federal workers way more than maybe they would have experienced in their own wage increases? There's a political calculation to be made here. But the other point, Ryan, if I could just quickly, the Liberals struck a deal with the NDP until 2025. And the NDP has come out and said, if there's a strike and the Liberals, try to table back to work legislation, they will not support it. So it could be tricky if we get into strike zone. How do you get those workers back? What are you going to do? My feeling is they would want to probably avoid getting there.
We're talking to Vanmala Subramaniam, future of work reporter with the Globe and Mail. By the way, I love your job title, the future of work reporter. How long have you been on that beat? Because if you think about how work, where we work, how long we work, why we work, what we work for, it's evolving at a pace that arguably maybe it has never before. What a fascinating beat to be on for you.
Yeah, it's absolutely fascinating. I've been doing it for about 2+ years now. What's interesting actually is a lot of my reporting, the underlying sort of, feeling that I've gotten from employees across the country is that their relationship with their jobs has changed because of the pandemic, because they've had time to reflect, and they no longer feel that their jobs are their entire lives. There's a sense of work-life balance amongst the workforce that we haven't seen in a while. And in fact, in these negotiations that we're talking about with the federal workers, what the union is also trying to do, which they are not, they are kind of at odds with the government on, is introducing remote work language into collective agreements, which is something that we have never seen before. So they want their members to be able to grieve a situation where they don't feel they're being fairly accommodated for working from home. And it's controversial. Some people will argue, well, you are arguably more productive in the office. The federal public service is not known for being the most efficient, form of, I guess, the most efficient. People say that. And I think it's interesting that the government has mandated federal workers back in 2 to 3 times a week, and they're having negotiations, but the union is pushing back on that, saying you cannot arbitrarily do that. We want to say in it. So all of these things are kind of the future of work. We've never seen these conversations before in the realm of, employment and labor relations.
How did the Globe handle it, or how is the Globe handling it with you and your colleagues? What's through COVID, I'm assuming most of you were working from home. What's the situation now?
Yeah, to be honest, the Globe is a very flexible employer. I come in 1 to 2 times a week. I'm here today in the office. Tuesdays are a popular day. I have a team meeting, a story idea meeting, which is why I'm in. But we have done what most companies have done, which we have a hybrid work policy. So it is not because of the nature of, you would know this, Ryan, a job of a reporter, you're kind of out and about a lot. So there's no hard and fast rule. You have to be sitting at your desk. If I'm working on a feature and I need time to think, I find that it's better for me to work from home. No one pushes back on that. And it's kind of I think it's a situation that works. I do feel the need to be in office sometimes, though, because I find that ideas flow more easily when you're in person and talking about it.
Totally. I've got a pal, I won't name the company, doesn't matter, but he just came in a senior leadership role, and he was telling me that he's being seen in an unpopular light right now because of the stamp he put on their corporate culture right away. He strongly believes that people need to work together in this context. Design and creativity is important in the business that he's in, and he's ordered everybody back to work. And he was telling me that a lot of people are pretty pissed off about it. I'm curious to see, when we talk about residual impacts of COVID and what changes or sort of like societal adjustments, including in the workplace, will stick, like what will still be here 20 years from now. I think the work from home, the flexibility idea, I think that for the most part, would you agree as a future of work reporter, we'll never get back to 5 days a week in the office all the time for everybody. I don't think it's ever going back to that.
Yeah, I agree. I completely agree with you. In fact, I'm working on an analysis of exactly what you were talking about. So we've seen a decline in the number of people in Canada who work fully remotely, so 5 days a week, and we were doing that at the height of the pandemic, and a huge surge in people working hybrid. But we've kind of plateaued now, data-wise, where we're seeing the 2 to 3 day mark being the norm. No one's really pushing for more than that. Certain companies might be doing it. It's quite unpopular because, we're still in sort of a tight labor market, that jobs, people can move for more flexibility if they want it. And I think employers are aware of that. So I think we've reached sort of a happy medium where people come in 2 to 3 times a week. They're not really willing to commute in 5 times a week. In a city like Toronto, commuting is very, very tough and long, and the city is not equipped to even deal with the amount of foot traffic it has right now on public transit and, and even highways and roads. So I think that's a huge deterrent for people to come in 5 days a week, because I don't see this really changing even in the next, say, 5 years or so.
We've got an interesting comment here from Tracy, who's watching us on our YouTube live stream in the chat. Tracy says, let's remember, we're talking now about these public servants, 150,000 of them, or at least, a good number. Tracy says these are the folks who helped Canadians get through the pandemic. These were the ones that were issuing checks, processing the paperwork, working overtime. By the way, Tracy says, thankfully, Vanmala is providing the whole picture this morning. So there you go. Kudos on your reporting. But there are optics here to consider, and the Liberal government, as you report in the Globe and Mail, could order these workers back to work. It's an option, but it could be a politically risky move.
Absolutely, it could. And Tracy is very right. Basically, these were the same public servants who kind of rallied in early 2020, in the spring of 2020, and doled out all of these programs that Canadians were dependent on. And I reported on that back when I was at the Financial Post. And, the speed in which the government came out with programs like CERB and the Canadian Emergency Wage Subsidy, sure, these programs have had major flaws in them as well, but they did help. It was quite remarkable. And all of this stuff was done from home. And I think that's kind of the union talking point here, which to me has a lot of, weight to it, because they're arguing, look, we rallied from home when we were less equipped to work from home and we had no idea of how to do it, but we got things done. Why is it we can't keep doing that, in a sort of a reasonable way where we come in when it is necessary, not just to come in for the sake of sitting at a desk and doing Zoom calls, So yeah, it is interesting. And on the political front, if back to work legislation is invoked, the Liberals will have to rely on the Conservatives and the Bloc Québécois for support. Because the NDP has kind of clearly said, we're not going to vote this through.
Yeah.
And this Liberal government has been quite outwardly pro-worker. So I think it'll be interesting to see what happens there.
Yeah. It's a tough look, especially when the Liberals, as you report, have committed to passing so-called anti-scab legislation. Yeah. Not unprecedented, right? A couple of strikes over the past few years, or past few decades, I should say. 1991, about 70,000 public sector workers go on strike, ultimately ordered back to work by then Prime Minister Brian Mulroney after about 3 weeks. And then in 2004 as well, the strike prompting a deal a few days later. So, I mean, they tend to work. They tend to be effective, you might argue.
Absolutely, they do. But the size of the public service has increased over the last little while, especially in the pandemic. They've had to hire a lot of people to process backlogs, especially in the immigration department and in Service Canada. So the reason actually why this will be the biggest strike is partly due to the fact that the public service has increased in size. And, so that's why you'll see about 155,000 workers potentially walk off the job.
Vanmala, before we let you go, thank you so much for your time. I know you've got a story to file today. We appreciate you taking time to talk to us. What's one other trend? Again, future of work reporter. I love the beat. I love the job title. What's one other trend you're keeping an eye on? Something that you're quite interested in following right now?
The big trend I'm following is artificial intelligence. AI, the impact it has had on workers, the change in job functions of workers. It's a big topic to explore. I wrote a piece recently on how call center jobs are essentially changing dramatically. A lot of them are being wiped out because of, the introduction of AI. So I'm kind of keeping an eye on that from the lens of the impact on the worker, either positive or negative. So, yeah.
Fascinating stuff. Have you heard that song, Heart on My Sleeve by Ghostwriter? Have you heard about this? You've been following this story?
No, I haven't.
So it's this guy used AI, got AI to put together a song sampling
hear about
Drake
this, yes.
and The Weeknd. It's unbelievable. It's blowing my mind.
I did hear about this, right.
Oh my gosh. We've got to get a music industry person on to talk about the future of music
Absolutely.
and how AI is disrupting that. Hey, keep up the great work. I've been following your writing for a long time. Vanmala Subramaniam, you can read her work in the Globe and Mail at theglobemail.com and give her a follow on Twitter as well. We'll talk to you again soon.
Thanks, Ryan.
Yeah, you got it. Again, theglobandmail.com. Johnny, have you heard that tune? Have you heard this one, this Ghostwriter tune, Heart on My Sleeve?
Oh, this is the one you were talking about.
Yeah, I was
yesterday.
talking about this yesterday. So a buddy of mine put this on my radar. This is somebody just like it's not the act. We can't play it because it'll trigger all the copyright stuff, and, which is actually kind of ironic if you think about it. Because kind of the whole argument is that Drake and The Weeknd have nothing to do with this this tune. So I don't know who has the copyright claim, but you get to, I mean, like, you can start using AI. What if, Tom Petty, may he rest in peace, are we going to have new Tom Petty tunes?
Yeah. It's so intelligent too. I was talking to another DJ. There was about 4 DJs last night inside Rogers Place playing in different areas, and one of them said, I wanted to promo that I was at this event, but I didn't have time. Like, I've been so busy this week. I went into ChatGPT and I said, here's the event, here's the details.
Yeah.
Tell everyone I'm excited to see them, etc., and hit enter.
Yeah.
And in 2 minutes he had a social media post, and then he told Chat to, like, can you make this different for like 4 different social media apps? And it made 3 or 4 different versions of it and all he did was add his name and press send on.
It's amazing.
It's crazy.
A friend of mine was telling me just the other day he reads a lot of contracts in his line of work, but this one contract he was sifting through had some sort of, like, it was real legalese, and he's not a lawyer, and he's trying to read this contract, and he was just kind of struggling with it a little bit, like just kind of was having a hard time understanding it in layperson's terms, punches it into ChatGPT, gives it the instruction to basically dumb it down, and it did. And it sort of like translated it into like language that we would use on the street, like that the everyday person could understand. I'd be curious to hear from Real Talkers. How are you using AI in your line of work, or maybe just to complement your lifestyle or help you better understand something? We are just, I mean, this is the most obvious thing I'm going to say all week. We are just starting to understand the implications of what this is going to look like.
It's going to be
fascinating
insane.
stuff.
The one thing I'm worried about, though, is this mean, like, in 20 years everyone's going to be stupid? Because what I mean? Chat's going to be doing everything for us. Well, we're still going to need doctors and lawyers, and you know what I mean? And I feel like a lot of people, the main thing people are concerned about is students obviously cheating on essays, exams, and so
we've been wondering about this for a long time, even with like if you think when you're texting and text messaging, and the setting will like finish the word for you, you can sort of like swipe your thumb right to finish the sentence, and it just finishes the sentence, and there's autocorrect for spelling, and people are going, well, are kids even going to know how to spell anymore?
Yeah.
I don't know. What about handwriting? Like, nobody can handwrite anymore, but then do you need to?
Right? Yeah.
I don't know.
We'll see.
Let us know what you think. Kathy says they've got a program at work that uses AI to write and voice commercials, and now it can compose royalty-free music to go along with it. Right? Yeesh. Tracy says, my fear is AI may be the game changer that creates mass unemployment and mass profits for those who master it. Meantime, Catamus Rex says AI is going to take over, so don't let it. Who asked for this? That's like Rise of the Robots. You know what I mean? Who let it happen in the first place? Coming up in just a few minutes, we're going to talk to Angie Mellen in studio. Why the hot girl summer billboards are a real problem. Can you load up that California Closets video for me, Johnny? I had a chance to visit a home, some friends just the other day. They're Real Talkers, Dustin and Amy, and they had reached out to California Closets. They heard about them on Real Talk. They had a bit of a dilemma. Beautiful, brand new home, and they have this front room, not quite big enough for a bedroom. Plus, they didn't want a bedroom right when you walk into the house, and so they thought that a Murphy bed might be a great solution. Okay, wait, Dustin, what's going on?
We're just gonna lower down the bed here.
And you're not taking the stuff off the shelf?
Nothing.
What? Oh, wow! So check that out.
That is so cool.
Isn't that amazing? Look at this Murphy beautiful bed. Look at it go back up. The Murphy bed goes back up into the wall, and then the shelves are still there. They don't have to dismantle anything. Amy's loving it. Wow. Look at this. Their daughter, Georgia, helping them with the interior design there. Just beautifully done.
That's crazy. So for people who can't see, like, there's a computer, there's a flower pot, there's all sorts of stuff that's on top, like it's not glued down, but
On
when
the
you pull
shelves.
down the bed,
Yeah.
everything just goes under the bed like automatically.
So cool. It's so cool. It doesn't even dump the flower pot. How
So
neat is that?
cool.
Because, it's one thing if you have the shelving unit, you got to take it all down when
Yeah.
company comes over. This one takes 5 seconds. And by the way, they told us installation took 1 day, and it was $3,000 less than a quote from a competing closet company. So there you go. CaliforniaClosets.ca is where you can learn more. Don't forget California Closets, of course, proudly presenting our live streaming Mixlr audio app, which sure is a great way to catch Real Talk on the go if you want to stream the audio live in your car or during your morning commute or what have you. Also had a chance to check in with our friends at Apex Automation the other day, and they reminded me that they're hiring right now. I said, well, who do you want me to reach out to in particular? They said, well, obviously professional engineers, technicians, people interested in the future of automation. You talk about AI, that's going to be big in this line of work as well. Autonomous vehicles, also in mining, in energy resources, in agriculture, you name it, they're in that industry. But they also said, put the call out to recent university grads. If you're an engineering student, you're getting ready to graduate, University of Alberta, University of Calgary, maybe other engineering schools across the country, check out apexautomation.ca today. They're hiring. They're putting people ahead of profits. This could be the best move you make all year. Also wanted to give a big shout out to our friends at Grand Dog Essentials Quality Raw Food. What can I tell you that would mean more than this is what we feed our furry family members? That's right, Moses and Monroe love their quality raw food from Grand Dog Essentials. And it's not just dogs either. If you check out the website, you'll find what they have for cats as well. Now, cats' diet's obviously different than dogs, and so you can learn the basics for a raw diet for cats, as well as a how-to guide on the transition. The blog link is a great resource for questions you may have on high-quality proteins for dogs and cats. And don't forget the promo code REALTALK knocks 10% off your first-time order delivered to your door in Calgary, Edmonton, and Central Alberta. That's granddog.ca. Our friends at Kubi Energy also hiring. This is the busiest time of year for them as they head into the spring. They're going to be up on rooftops across Western Canada, and they want to make sure that if you're looking for work, if you're a skilled installer, if you have your ticket, if you're an apprentice, if you're looking maybe to broaden your horizons in the field of green energy, you can check out their website at kubienergy.ca. Also follow them on social media. Their Instagram's a great resource at Kubi Energy to see some of the projects they're working on. Johnny's showing them to us right now. Beautiful stuff. The most skilled installers, of course, all of them Tesla certified. You'll find them online today at kubienergy.ca. And we want to give a big shout out as well to the team that built this studio. Literally. We're so grateful for the team at Complete Care Restoration. You can find them online. Their website, a great resource. If you find yourself in one of these nightmare scenarios, I was talking to Kelly. He's one of the company's founders, and he says, honestly, Jespo, he says, we're going to be your only sponsor. Hopefully the Real Talkers never call. But if you do have that sort of a gut check moment, you know what I'm talking about. You head down to the basement to change the laundry, and all of a sudden the water is ankle deep. You know what I'm talking about. Spring floods. 'Tis the season, my friends. Or maybe the nightmare of fire damage, mold, asbestos. They do it, and they do it the best in the business. Chances are your insurance policy lets you choose who completes the work. When you need restoration services, make it Complete Care Restoration. Our next guest, I've known for quite some time. We've worked together. We've been pals. But she's here in the context of a new role, executive director, interim executive director. We're talking about eating disorders or disordered eating. Angie Mellen, it's a pleasure to welcome you here. Thanks for making time for us. Welcome to the Real Talk studio.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, no kidding. This is kind of a neat moment for us. You had this, you've had this career in storytelling
Yes.
for a long time. You and I running parallel, and can I get personal right out of the
Yes,
gates?
definitely.
For the first number of years that you and I were hanging out and working alongside one another, I had no idea about some of the personal strife, some of the stuff that you were wrestling with. But over the years, you've started to really tell your story out loud, displaying a great deal of courage. And I've got a ton of respect for you. Can you bring our audience up to speed on your personal journey in this context?
Yeah, so my journey with my mental health started when I was in my teens, as most people do. I was diagnosed with an eating disorder when I was 16, and I was in and out of hospital at the University of Alberta, and I really struggled with my depression, my anxiety. I struggled with suicidal ideation and suicidal behaviors and actions. So it was a really struggle for quite some time, and going through that, but it definitely gave me perspective and really thoughts on how to move forward with this.
So 16 years of age at the time you say you're diagnosed
Yes.
with an eating disorder. So you had obviously been willing to sort of participate in a
Yes.
consultation or to meet with the physician. What was it at that point that prompted either yourself
Yeah.
or people that cared about you to encourage you to seek that expert opinion?
So I was in the soccer academy at high school, and my soccer coach actually started noticing a lot of big changes in my performance, and I fainted a couple times at school, and she brought it up to my mom. She was like, I've noticed some big changes. I really think you should bring it to a doctor. And at this point we had no idea like what was going on. Like, we didn't think it was an issue. We just thought this was something that I was going through. And then when I talked to my doctor about kind of my eating patterns, my exercise habits, my thoughts and behaviors around those issues, he was like, no, there is a problem here. And he automatically referred me to the University of Alberta Eating Disorder Program, to a lovely doctor, Dr. Pichtel, and he automatically got me into the program. And without their support, I honestly would not be here.
When you're looking back on those years of
Yeah.
your life, I mean, do you look back pre-16? Like, looking back with the benefit of hindsight, are you
Yes.
able to think of thoughts that you were having as a 6 or 8 or a 10 or a 12-year-old?
Oh yeah, I remember going on a diet when I was 6 years old. I remember
Wow.
watching my calories when I was super young. I remember doing all that stuff. I remember waking up at 5 in the morning when I was 10 a.m. so I could go on walks to try and lose weight. So those are all things that like played into it. But at the time, those are such normalized behaviors. There's so caught up in society that people think it's like an okay thing to do. They think it's normal. They think it's part of growing up. So no one really catches those behaviors. And so it really just escalated to a point that it wasn't manageable anymore.
And so you did get to a point, like you mentioned, you talk about, we've had some really heavy and meaningful and
Yes.
important conversations on this show recently, in particular about suicide.
Yeah.
And the fact that we really, as a society, don't talk about it,
No.
despite the fact that it's estimated that 12 Canadians every day
Yeah.
Die by suicide. Your social media has been an open book.
Yeah.
And there's not a lot of people that I see that are willing to talk as openly as you do about their personal struggles.
Yeah.
How did you get to that point? And can I ask you to comment on what I've seen, which is like an incredible army of supporters around you?
Yeah.
Were you always the type of person that was willing to share your deepest stuff?
To be honest, I'm actually typically a very private person. I don't like asking for help. I don't like reaching out. But I noticed going through what I've been through that is detrimental to me. That really harms me. And so I found when I'm reaching out for help, when I'm talking to people, when I'm asking for support, that's when things get better for me. That's when things improve. So that's why I noticed that when I'm more open with people, then I can have those conversations and things can start to get better. So when I'm being open on social media, I'm doing it so those conversations can happen. And I'm also hoping by being open that when other people see it, they know that they're not alone. They're like, okay, this doesn't just happen to me. Someone else is thinking this. I'm not crazy. Like, this happens. So like, I'm hoping that people see this and they're be able to be like, okay, I can reach out to Angie and she understands, like she gets it. So I hope people get that from me
You've
as
walked
well.
miles in the shoes.
Yes.
That's big for a lot of people. So how did the Eating Disorder Support Network of Alberta get on your radar?
Yeah, so I actually heard of them when I started at NAIT going through the radio and television broadcasting program. I did a little story on them.
Really?
And I got so like interested by the organization. And after my reporting career, I saw this opportunity come open with them. And I was like, I want to give back to this community that's supported me and given me so much throughout my life. So I saw the opportunity and I applied, and we had this great conversation. And yeah, ever since then, it's been about 2 years that I've been with them, and it's been amazing.
When we talk about disordered eating,
yes,
that could be like 1,000 different things, couldn't it?
Yeah. So disordered eating can range from like little things, like there could be little habits like maybe saying, I'm going to be bad and have dessert. That can be a disordered thought. That can be a little bit of a disordered thought. Or maybe thinking that you have to reduce your calories because you're not exercising a whole lot or you're not moving a whole lot that day. That's a disordered sort of thought, disordered sort of belief. So those are kind of things that like everyone has. Everyone has, like, it happens to everyone. You're going to have some sort of thoughts. So we really want to start to challenge those beliefs and start to challenge those thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, you could have, I mean, so many different, I mean, you know, some one person's disordered eating could be, you know, like crushing food at 3 a.m.
Exactly.
You know, whereas another person's disordered eating might be not eating for 3 days in a row.
Exactly.
Right?
It can be completely different depending on the person. Like you could have people who maybe struggle with binge eating and they can't control their eating. They feel like they're blacking out. But you can also have people who just can't get to the point where they can allow themselves to eat. So you have like that whole range of experiences from people.
What role do you think that COVID has played in all of this and how people are feeling about their bodies and their habits and just like everything?
So we saw a huge increase in eating disorder hospitalizations with COVID. And a lot of that has to do with the isolation factor because people are so alone. And then there was also, I don't know if you remember, but during COVID, there was that whole lose the COVID-15 and like there was all those ads about trying to like get on the weight loss journey or like this is the time to like get back into the fitness world. And you know, so that all compounded it. And then people were so online, you could see everything happening in social media, and you had the explosion of TikToks and what I eat in a days and all the body checking and that sort of stuff. So it all sort of compounded with COVID.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah.
You and the organization, I'm saying you,
yes.
obviously it's your entire team is focusing a lot on athletes.
Yes.
And people involved in athletics. And the statistics that you've shared with me are striking. It's estimated 45% of female athletes, like nearly half, and about 1 in 5 male athletes, 19%, struggle with an eating disorder.
Yes, exactly.
How is that on the radar? I mean, can you give us some insight into why this is a top priority for the organization? We're going to talk about your event coming up in just a minute.
Yeah, so eating disorders in the fitness industry is such a complex issue that we really wanted to offer a complex look at it because fitness is seen as such a great thing to do, and it is, and it can be, but it can also be really detrimental to people if they're not going about it in the right way, if they're not approaching it in the right way. So the fitness industry can like be really helpful, but it can also be really hurtful to people who are not in the greatest mindset.
So you have billboards in your sites.
Yes.
we know that advertising
yes.
works, advertising's effective, and billboards have this way of just like staring us down, don't they, when there's a message that resonates. And we're talking about like hot girl summer,
yes.
bikini bodies,
yes.
revenge bodies.
Yes.
What's the bone to pick with this type of marketing?
I would just like to say that people should not have to change their body, their shape, their size to fit into someone else's standards of what beauty looks like. I feel like, one, you can have health at every size. Health is multifaceted, multidimensional, multifactored. So you can have health and be in any shape or size body. So layering down fitness into thinness is not what we need to do. So we really want to relook at that conversation.
Do you see attitudes changing or evolving in the fitness industry?
We definitely do. It's double layered. So we see people recognizing that this is an issue, but we also see people capitalizing on it.
Sure.
Because I mean, you can make money off of people's insecurities.
Huge money.
Right? So, I mean, I believe the weight loss industry, the global weight loss industry was projected to reach over $200 billion by the end of last year.
I'm not surprised at all.
So, I mean, there's huge money to be made there, but that's not the reason to do it. Like, we need to be looking out for people's best interests before the financial gain.
Do you and your colleagues end up talking a lot to either like kids, tweens, and teens, or the parents and guardians of them? Like when do these conversations need to start in your mind?
So we don't directly talk to anybody under the age of 18.
Okay.
Yes, but we do talk to a lot of parents and stuff like that, and we definitely help people when they start to notice issues. A lot of parents come to us and be like, what's my first step? Where do I go? Who do I talk to about this? So we are really great for helping people navigate this system because we know it's confusing, it's complex, it's hard to deal with. So we are really a great first step for people who just need to know what next to do.
Okay. You've got an event coming up.
Yes.
This is coming up May 6th and 7th. People can check it out online,
Yes.
which is great. So wherever they are, or in person at the Van Vliet Center in Edmonton, again, May 6th or 7th. Eating disorders in the fitness industry.
Yes.
Who's this for? What's the pitch?
Yes, so any sort of fitness professional is welcome to join. So yoga instructors, spin instructors, I mean, if you coach youth soccer, it'd be a great course for you. So it's really open to anyone who's involved in any aspect of the fitness industry. And we really want to have this dialogue and this discussion about how we can best support athletes and people in the fitness environment so that they're getting what they need from fitness in a great way, in a way that benefits them, in a way that's not going to be detrimental to their mental or to their physical health.
Yeah. Okay, but real talk, how much stigma are you going to have to fight through for this? Like, there's going to be a lot of people, honestly, in the fitness industry, they're going to go, oh, give me a break.
Honestly, I know there's going to be pushback. I get pushback all the time. I know people when I say there's health at every size, people are like, that's not true. And I get that. But I want to be able to have that conversation where we can talk about it and really get to the understanding of what health means and what your definition of health is and how we can see where we can come to an understanding on that.
Yeah. Well, gosh, I'm not the expert on this, but I've had enough of these conversations and interviews like this to have heard stories from people that have been living the most unhealthy lifestyle to appear to be healthy.
Exactly.
And some of and I won't even call them sacrifices, but some of the dramatic or drastic measures and steps that people take, you couldn't argue that would be healthy in any way, shape, or form.
No, exactly. Yeah. It takes it to that whole nother level where it's an obsession with healthy or clean or pure eating, but it's actually detrimental to the person.
Our audience, we've got an engaged listening audience, and my heart is always full when we hear from younger real talkers. I'm talking about the teenagers, the high school students, the university students. What would you say to what would grown up Angie say to the 16-year-old that hears this interview right now, and this is resonating with him or her? This is resonating with them. They're starting to struggle. They know between their two ears what's going on within their own thoughts. What's your message to that person?
My big message is that there is support and help out there. Wherever you are in the journey, wherever you are, we can meet you where you're at. And I want you to know you're not alone. There's people out there that are behind you. We're behind you. We support you. And so I want people to know that just remember that you have a team with you. You have people with you, and it does get better. I know that's such a cliche, but it does. It does get better.
You're proof of it, my friend. I'm really proud of you.
Thank you.
Yeah,
thank you.
and the work you're doing right now, I know that it's personal for you,
It
and
really
I know you
is.
care about it a great deal. I can see it in your eyes as I talk to you. I'm grateful to have you here in studio.
Thank you.
It's so nice to reconnect.
Yes.
We walked the same hallways for a long
Yes.
time, and I watched you coming up in TV. Eating disorders in the fitness industry, May 6th or 7th. If you're listening, if you're watching this live, we've just shared the link in the chat. It's $200, but you said there's some financial assistance available for people that might have that as a barrier too.
Oh yeah, we never want finances to be a barrier to anything we're offering. So if it is an issue, send me an email, send me a message on Instagram. I will help you out. We will get you a discount code. We will make it work.
You're the best, Angie. I love it. And if you're listening to this or watching later, check out the show notes for the podcast or on YouTube, and we'll have the link there. It's really good to see you. Thanks for making time for us.
Thank you.
You got it. That's Angie Mellen. She's interim. We're going to drop that interim tag soon. I know it. Executive Director for the Eating Disorder Support Network of Alberta. This conversation was presented by Real Talk sponsors like Park Power. They know right now, this time of year, they know, we're talking about, people, trying to negotiate raises. We're talking about inflation. We're talking about family budgets. You want to find a way to keep some money in your pocket, right now? go to parkpower.ca. If you're living in the province of Alberta and, you need electricity, natural gas, or internet, in other words, everybody, you can compare rates today online. Takes 2 seconds, and it takes literally less than 5 minutes to bring your business over to Park Power. Don't forget the promo code REALTALK23 is a bundling promo code, so it saves $50 off your first bill for every service you go with. You're not getting that deal anywhere else except for Park Power. Also, a big shout out to our friends at Friesen Brothers in 16 different Alberta communities. I want to draw your attention today to their flyer resource at friesen.com. You can check it out online. That's FRESON. The Family Essentials flyer. We love this. It's a great resource to track down quality food ideas for low prices every day. You can view the flyer online, and it comes with some great meal suggestions, like one pan to feed them all. There's an amazing looking scramble right there featuring lean ground Alberta beef. Friesen Brothers is proudly Alberta grown and Alberta owned in 16 different Alberta communities, including right here in Edmonton. Johnny, they got a big birthday coming up. The Stony Plain, Fort Saskatchewan, and Edmonton stores have big birthday celebrations coming up. So shout out to our friends at Friesen Brothers. Also wanted to make sure that we mention Eden Landscaping today. I was telling you, our family is on the journey right now, working with Mike and Andrea and their team of designers. Johnny got our 3D renderings for the yard, and I'm going to be able to share these soon, and then ultimately we'll show the after pictures. You know what I'm nervous about showing the before and afters? Is when I show the before pictures to Real Talkers, they're going to be like, that was your yard? That was your
I've seen it, though. It's
yard?
not that bad.
Man, it looks like people are practicing with dirt bikes in the back. There's like entire patches of lawn just gone. That's what happens when you have dogs and a trampoline. But you know what? The design is a common. Dogs aren't going anywhere. Trampoline's not going anywhere. But the design that they put together for us is functional. It works for our budget. Dealing with them has been a total dream as they bring our outdoor space to life, and they would love to do the same for yours as well. We showed the renderings to friends of ours. They've already got a request in for a quote from Eden Landscaping. That's landscapeedmonton.ca. What did you make of the blowback? Were you paying attention to the blowback from our Defund the CBC conversation yesterday with Charles Adler?
We threw up some social media posts, and the crowd is getting wild.
So you've got folks that find value in what the national broadcaster brings to the table, and then you've got folks that just have absolutely no use for it whatsoever. And if I can generalize, if I can speak on behalf of hundreds of thousands of people here, it tends to me, based on my powers of observation, to come down to the politics of it.
Of course.
People believe that the CBC is an arm of the Justin Trudeau Liberal government, and they believe that this is essentially a state-sponsored or government-sponsored media outlet that's carrying water for the federal Liberal Party, that's heavily critical on just the Conservatives, and that was kind of the vibe that I was getting yesterday. I did want to point one thing out right off the bat, and that is just, again, if you go to cbc.ca today, you can check out a story that they have just broken there. This is on, have you seen this? The Trudeau family that was vacationing in Jamaica, and they say that security for the Prime Minister's detail and for his family cost taxpayers about $160,000.
Oh, man.
Now, the trip was approved by the ethics commissioner.
Well, then what's the problem?
Well, I mean, optics, man, optics.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to point that out today. You will find news coverage of this story about the Trudeau family vacationing with wealthy friends who donated to the Pierre Elliott Trudeau Foundation, whose entire board resigned last week, by the way. Kind of an interesting story we're keeping an eye on with the Trudeau Foundation. But this was on cbc.ca today. So that's an interesting point to be made. I saw Max Fawcett, who joined us just a few days ago, tweeting this morning about this story. He says, is Trudeau trying to lose the next election?
Love the Foss.
Max was great. So I wanted to get to some of your comments, because we don't just read the flattering ones here on Real Talk. We don't just want to read emails that talk about how great the show is, how much you love it. We also want to make sure that, well, the critics have a platform as well. And so I thought it might be kind of fun to read through some of my Twitter replies. Yesterday, I said, in a way, the CBC is Real Talk's biggest competitor. I mean, in a way, it is. I'd love its budget, its resources, its reach. I said, but I still do see a ton of value in Canada's national broadcaster. I said, don't be manipulated by this defund the CBC nonsense. And Charles Adler and I got into it. You can check out our show from yesterday if you want to hear his take on it. He invokes the Canadian military, kind of an interesting point made by Charles there.
Well, and I kind of get that point when he was saying, like, because somebody commented on one of our TikToks yesterday and said, well, the government does run the military. They make all the decisions. They tell them what to do, which is kind of true, but not to the extent that people are making it.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. He wonders is because this is government funded. Is the military government funded, and if so, is it Justin Trudeau's personal militia? Right. Steve D chimes in and says we need to pull the plug entirely on the CBC. I always want to, if I thought that we could have a good conversation on this, and I'm inviting it, I want to. If you want to send us an email to talk@ryanjesperson.com, we'd love it. Something we never do, I always want to let people know as well, you can shoot a video to us. If you want to shoot like a selfie-style video,
we'd love to share it.
You want to make your comment on video, just send it to us on Twitter. Use the hashtag RealTalkRJ or send it directly to our account. We'd love to include video feedback. Treat them just like letters or emails as well. Why do you believe that you should just pull the plug on the CBC? Is it that you hated Schitt's Creek? Is it that you can't stand Ian Hannah-Mansing? I doubt it. Is it a cost-cutting measure? Is it about just the politics of it? Do you see no value in regional news coverage, in steady news coverage that is not determined, like we said, by hedge fund-owned corporate media assets? So Steve says it's time to pull the plug on it. West 1010 says defund the CBC. It's a joke like the BBC. I don't think the BBC is really perceived to be a joke internationally. Uncle Moses says there are many rational reasons to not trust the media and its highly selective process in deciding who, what, or why to hold some entities accountable but not others. Uncle Moses says the conflicts of interest are so obvious now that it has led to an all-time low in public trust. Now, Uncle Moses is onto something, and if you look at polling on professions that have lost public trust over the past number of years, journalists and media are among the highest. In other words, they have lost the most trust in the public. And we've had some great conversations here on the show in the past 6 months on how the media can regain that trust back. Mongo8899 says that, whose profile picture looks strangely like the Prime Minister, says we should give rebel media, give Ezra Levant $1.4 billion per year. That would be fair. The account One Term Notley believes that my position on the CBC is exactly why 630 Ched fired me. Fair enough. The Devil's Advocate says the public doesn't want to be funding the propaganda that's being fed to them by the CBC. Someone like George Soros can pay for it. And Token wonders if and when the CBC is defunded, how much of a subscription fee would you be willing to pay? Interesting question.
Yeah, CBC put out that statement too. I think this is the one, right, where they said, basically.
They say Twitter's own policy. This was after they were labeled as government-funded media. They say the policy is where the government may have varying degrees of government involvement over editorial content, which is clearly not the case with the CBC. That's their position on it. Did you see? So Elon Musk, Pierre Poilievre reaches out to the American billionaire to essentially erode confidence in or support for. This is it's a ploy. Obviously, it's a publicity stunt, and it's working for Poilievre. But he lobbies Twitter to label the CBC's Twitter account as government-funded media. So they did it. The CBC pushes back and says we're 70% funded, tax funded. They wouldn't prefer that phrase, but that's a fact. And do you see what Twitter does today? So now their profile says they are 69% government-funded media. It's like this whole thing now. Twitter has been turned into like basically poop jokes and fart jokes, and this is what 44 billion gets you. It is a circus. Let us know what you think about all of this. We're always curious, and maybe your position on this is a good fit for Trash Talk. Of course, you know that's coming up Fridays on the show. This is your chance to just blow off a little steam. It's presented every Friday right here on the show by our friends at Local Environmental Services. You want to figure out more about who is local? If you're a business owner, a restaurant owner, maybe you have a retail location somewhere, and you're going, well, obviously where we spend our money is important, and how much money we're spending is important, and core values matter to you. and you want to know more about who you're doing business with, who you're partnering with, and what drives their philosophy, you can check it out online right now at localenvironmental.ca. If you're an entrepreneur or a decision maker, perhaps you're deciding on behalf of entire communities across Alberta or Saskatchewan, things like garbage, recycling, things like water hauling, fencing, portable toilets, you name it, Local does it. And you can find out more, including how communities deserve better and are getting better at localenvironmental.ca. I also wanted to sound the alarm here, and you can check this out on Instagram at instagram.com/Dairy Queen Baseline. This is sort of an all-point bulletin. This is a major announcement. Ladies and gentlemen, the churro-dipped cone is now available at the Dairy Queens of Northwest Edmonton and Sherwood Park. Yeah, that's right. It's a churro-flavored cone. The coating is topped with cinnamon sugar. Unbelievable stuff. Check this out. I'm showing it to you if you're watching on YouTube right now. It's all over this world-famous Dairy Queen soft serve. We shared the detail yesterday. We had permission from the top, permission from the tower to let you know that the Dairy Queen in Baseline Road in Sherwood Park, #1 in sales in Canada for soft serve.
I had no idea.
#1 in the country for soft serve sales. Nobody does it better than Dairy Queen Baseline. You'll also find them in Palisades, Nemeo, Newcastle, and Westmount, the Dairy Queens of Northwest Edmonton and Sherwood Park. Boy, I'm looking forward to tomorrow's show. Ladies and gentlemen, spread the word. They are political enemies, and they're drinking buddies too. Yeah, that's right. The friendship, the relationship is legendary. Both of them out of politics now, and I'm expecting a no-holds-barred analysis of what's happening across the Alberta political landscape. Coming up on Wednesday's Real Talk, we're going to check in with former Deputy Premier Thomas Lukaszuk and former NDP leader Brian Mason. They used to have their swords out in the legislature, swinging at one another, and then they'd go break bread after. Nobody knew about the friendship, but they proved it's possible. And we're going to find out if they think it can still be possible. That's coming up on tomorrow's Real Talk.
Real Talk is hosted by Ryan Jesperson, executive producer Josh Dunford, technical producer John Hicks, general manager Katie Cook-Chivers, account coordinator Lawrence Derlego, human resources Lena Shepard, website design Mike Johnston, voiceover by me, Carrie Skelton. Real Talk's editorial board is Supriya Dwivedi, Ahmed Ali, Brandy Morin, Ann Castleman, Corey Hogan, Harmon Candola, Catherine O'Neill, and Chris Henderson. Member Emerita, Julie Rohr. Real Talk is recorded in Edmonton, Alberta on Treaty 6 territory, the traditional and ancestral territory of the Cree, Dene, Blackfoot, Saulteaux, and Nakota Sioux, home to the Métis settlements and the Métis Nation of Alberta. Real Talk is a relay project. For more, check out ryanjesperson.com.